It'd be a really, really good exercise. Oh, it's being recorded. Look at that. How beautiful. Worked out just like I hoped it would. Stacking up your buyers now, getting them in line, because it is going to be a buyer feeding frenzy, in my opinion, coming up this summer. The summer of 23 will be one for the record books. Anybody else? Wonderful things that happened in your life, in your business, in your family, in your world, before we jump into
I
numbers?
took Sunday as a play day and took the kids to Great Wolf Lodge, and then we went and watched dwarf wrestling. It was fantastic.
Wow. At Great Wolf Lodge, like in the kiddie pool?
No, dwarf
Okay.
wrestling was at the Whiskey Salon and Bar or something on North Academy.
Of course,
They
that's
had
where
this
you take your kids.
cute little ring and these cute little people. I got video. It brings me much joy.
Oh my gosh.
It was fantastic.
Amy, you never cease to amaze me.
Also, I did not know that dwarf wrestling was a thing.
Look up dwarfinators.
It like sounds mean.
You know what? It was really a moral compass issue. Like, do I laugh? Am I allowed to? I laugh.
I'm so glad that Chris pressed record today of all
I know.
There you go,
That's
Chris.
right. I knew it. I had a prophetic word, and
There's
that this was going to
live
happen.
video on my Facebook. Just
All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. That was a good one. See you next time.
remember, play hard.
Okay, let's look at the numbers for today. Pulled the report this morning. New listings on the market as of this morning in the last 7 days, 171. Holding that a little bit of a tick up in new listing activity. 556,000 is the average, 485,000 as the median. Both those numbers also a little bit of a tick up from where we had been trending. Pending under contract, 278. That continues about a 6 or 7 week trend above 250 with one exception, and sustaining this increased level of buyer activity. And we'll come back to that in a minute. You can see days on market has continued trending downward consistently, steadily for the last about 8 weeks. Sold properties. I called it a couple weeks later than I expected, but 253 sold properties in the last 7 days. That is the biggest number that we have seen. Let me see how far back we have to go. That's the biggest number that we have ever seen since we've been pulling these numbers over 23 weeks, by quite a bit, by 20%. That's a big number. 253 properties sold in the last 7 days. 490 as the average price, 439 as the median, 50 days on market as the average days on market. Withdrawn, expired, canceled, saw an uptick here as is expected at the end of the month. Average price, so an increase in expired listings that could be thrown into your lead generation activities. 617,000 as the average, 506,000 is the median, 80 days on market as the average. So when you look at these numbers in comparison to our long average, which is the column right next to it, the column Y there, you can see, I think these two numbers here are the biggest story of the week. So 100, I mean, that's effectively what, a 70% increase in activity in the last week as compared to what we've been seeing over this historical average on sold properties. And reminder that this number right here, 253 sold properties, is really a reflection of the increase in activity that you see on these few weeks pending and under contract. So the pending under pending under contract feeds into sold on about a 5-week delay. And we're going to see that number when you look ahead in pending and under contracts. When you look over the last few weeks, we're going to see this number sustained, maybe not at 253, but I think over 200. We'll see this number sustaining over 200 a week moving forward with the amount of pending under contract activity that we've had. All right, let's look at comparisons and side by side. So the 4-week average, this is over the last, when you look over the last month, everything averaged out and weighted based on total data points. So these numbers, these average and median sold numbers, because there were 253 data points, each one of which is worth this much, these numbers here are going to be weighted really heavily by that 253 number. Makes sense? So when you have the more units that you have moving, the higher the unit number, the more the price numbers are going to weigh in the 4-week weighted average. But you can see the sold dollars up above from what it has been over the last month weighted. So this last week is pulling those numbers up. I'm still underneath, I guess about average actually. And you can see the relationships reflected over here. So in the last month, sold prices are down by about 3% on average as compared to the last 5 months, right? That's what that number relates to. Over the last week, sold prices are up 1.35% over the last month. But look at that. That's the number. That is a huge number. That over the last week, 45% increase in solds in closings compared to the last month. And over the last month, we've had a 13%, almost 14% increase over the historical that we're pulling now. Pending under contract, still that number is still a story. You know, this has been consistent, a steady increase, sustained increase in buyer activity over the last month. So 22% increase over the last month as compared to the historical average, which our historical average now, if you see up there, is 23 weeks long. That's a story that you can sell. So Hannah, when you're having conversations with buyers, like you said, 3 buyer consultations, you can say, don't listen to the media. Don't listen to the news that says that, you know, the market is really, really tough. The, you know, buyers are interest rates are higher. And so there's not as many buyers and things. It's the reality is over the last month, we've had a 22% increase in buyer activity. And that is only going to continue as interest rates come down. And I say it like that because I feel really confident in it, as you guys know now. Maybe not in the next week, but certainly they will. And it will create, unleash the demand. I mean, we're seeing the reflection of what demand is. Demand through the fall was stifled because of the interest rates and because of massive uncertainty. And yet here we are heading very quickly into a spring market, and buyers are saying, I don't care if interest rates are at 7%. I need a house that bad. It doesn't matter. And buyers have adjusted their expectations to interest rates. Agents are better at understanding how to help buyers win in a higher interest rate environment. And so you're seeing the demand for people who are like, I have to, I don't care if it's 7%, I have to. You're seeing that reflected. As interest rates go down, and assuming that they do, even by 1.5 points, let's say into the mid 5s, I think that you will see that even more so. you'll see buyer activity, the pent up demand reflected in buyer activity to an even higher degree. Anything else that's, I think that to me is probably the biggest thing to report out of the numbers this week. You know, sustained buyer activity and then a massive increase. And we'll see, it's right now it's just one week. It's not a trend yet. We've seen even this number last week of sold properties, 179, that was an uptick. You see the historical average of 153. So last week was an uptick. It was a 20% increase, and this week a 45% increase over the historical. So I think that we're going to see those numbers sustain. I think that we're going to see pending. I think we're going to see new listings. That's the thing that's lagging right now. So if we see sold properties staying up in that 200, 250 range, pending properties staying in the 250 to 300 range, I think that then the only lag there is new listings, and we'll see the new listings probably increasing. We've seen the last couple of weeks up a little bit. You can see this last week is leading the 4-week moving average by 6%. Still trailing the historical, because when you go back to October, look at this. October, you had between these 4 days, these 4 weeks right here, you had 922 listings in the market between the 11th of October and the 1st of November. 922 listings. So average of 240 or so, 230. And here the average over the last 4 weeks, 645, there are 300 more properties, 75 more a week hitting the market in October. So that's why the 4 week, over the last month, average 161 still trails the 23 week, even though we've sustained down under 200 for a long time. And you go back into December, that you have these weeks here, 69 new listings, 79 new listings. So we'll see this. This is the biggest lagging measure right now. Somebody was saying something.
Oh, I was gonna say something. Do you think, thinking through even what we've been through the last couple weeks / month in our business, personal life, of having a 3% interest rate and doing everything possible not to get rid of a 3% interest rate by renting it out, do you think that will affect long-term the amount of listings that hit the market, almost as like a golden handcuff?
I think a little bit, yeah. Certainly if my option is staying in let's see, how did I say this a couple weeks ago? I think you're not going to see the opportunistic moves.
Okay.
Like you did. So when you look at COVID and you look at summer of 2020 through the summer of 2022, let's call that a 2-year market period. There, because of the super low interest rate environment, because of people stuck in their houses and realizing they hate them, and looking at lifestyle changes, in the short term, those 3 things combined to create a new buyer and seller category of opportunistic buyer and seller. And people that were like, oh, I saw this house online, it looks awesome, let's go look at it. Otherwise, you would not have been in the market. And money was easy, and your money went a long way because of how low the interest rates were. So yeah. I think that, and that only heightened the already high demand because of inventory, a 10-year, 12-year inventory cycle. So those together is what creates double-digit appreciation on 3 consecutive years. Yeah. If you take the opportunistic move, buyer and seller, out of the demand you probably have a little more realistic appreciation cycle, and maybe not double digit, but maybe, 7 or 8%, still really, really, really strong, just not like into this unsustainably hot market.
Yeah.
And so does that answer your question? I think that people that are at 3%.
Yeah, it does. I think that's right. I mean, it's like, if I don't have to move, I have 3% interest rate.
Yeah.
I'm not just gonna fall in love with a house and increase my mortgage by
$1,000 a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on these numbers you guys see? Or that, I have been the last 2 weeks tracking active, all properties active El Paso County, and that number is nearly identical. Mortgage rates as of today, check that out. 6.99. 30-year fixed, and that's up. You look, let's see, where's the bottom? When was that? January 9th. We were at 613. January 30th. 6 1/8 on January 30th. So we've gone up 7/8, about 90, almost 90 basis points. In what, 5 weeks? We'll see what happens. The Fed, I think there's some stuff supposed to come out today from the Fed. Is that right? Is it today? Is it tomorrow? Maybe it's tomorrow. Consensus originally was a 1/4 point, and the consensus now is split between a 1/4 point and a 1/2 point. And there's been a lot more reason to believe it's going to be a 1/2 point increase when you start looking at other Fed chairs. So that, there's the Fed chair, which is Jerome Powell of the National Fed, and then you have 12 Fed banks, I think, something like that, and each one of them has a Fed chair, and they all have their own. They talk about different economic drivers and release information, and there's more of those have come out over the last couple of weeks and said 1/2 point is what they would push for and hope for. So that would certainly, a 1/2 point would be over what the market has already considered in its numbers. So right now we've got interest rates at 7%. And these are built upon a consensus of a 1/4 point increase is what the expectation is. And if it's a 1/2 point, my guess is that this would jump by a 1/4 of a point. It would jump by 25 basis points pretty quickly in response to a higher than expected increase at the Fed. And this may sound contrarian or contradictory to what I was saying in the team meeting last week, that the interest rates actually follow inflation. They do. They follow inflation and they react to the Fed policies, both. They follow inflation. They beat the Fed's reaction to inflation. They go there faster. Mortgage rates adjust faster than the Fed. And yet, if the Fed over adjusts, mortgage rates will also adjust to that. Mortgage rates will also respond to the Fed's over adjustment. And so we'll see over the next couple of days. Thursday morning, we'll have a good conversation about looking at the Fed minutes from their meeting and announcement on interest rates in response to inflation. And then I think the 12th is when new inflation data comes out. Expectation is it's going to be steady from what it was in January, and we'll see. Anything else? Here we are, 8:53 Anybody have anything else they want to add to the conversation? Questions, comments? Olivia and I are playing hooky from a class that we're supposed to be in Denver, so we were never here. Don't tell anyone.
You recorded it.
Dang it. God.
You timestamped it.
Yeah, it's
So that moment right there where you confessed.
I did. I timestamped it too, didn't I? Dang it. What is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? All right, everybody go make it a great day. We're around today if y'all need anything. So see you later.
Thank you. Bye.